Real talk. Real topics. Real solutions. This is MSR Forefront with your host, Stephanetta Harmon.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the latest installment of the MSR Forefront. I am Stephanetta Harmon, and I will be moderating tonight's discussion. Before we get started, though, we would like to thank our show sponsors. We have the Minneapolis Foundation, and we have Minnesota Public Radio.
The conversations we need to be having are just that, conversations. Unscripted. Two-way. More ways. Dialogue can heal the divisions. Listening, asking, to make sense of it all. That's what reporting is. That's what healing is. That's why we're putting more public in our radio. NPR News, discovering what matters. Together.
Thank you so much. And tonight we're discovering our own conversations here with the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. We're bringing Black conversations to the forefront with our latest hot topic, business ownership in Minnesota. We're talking challenges, surviving through a pandemic, and capitalizing on our own historic Black buying power. For those who are aware, nearly 60% of businesses that have closed during the pandemic will never reopen. Restaurants and service-based businesses have been suffering and hit the hardest, and we all know Black businesses have been hit even harder. And so tonight we're bringing three expert voices who are going to provide insights on this conversation and give us some calls to action and how we can support and provide resources to Black-owned businesses. We have Justin Butler, Board Vice Chair for the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce. He is also owner of Duck Donuts of Woodbury and Rita's Italian Ice of Egan. So he stay busy. We have Tommy Beavis, co-owner of Pimento Jamaican Kitchen. He's out here serving up some good food and keeping us happy and keeping everybody right. We have Felicia Perry, who is Executive Director of West Broadway Business and Area Coalition. So thank you for joining in this conversation tonight, y'all. How are you doing? Can we unmic? I just like to do a general check-in and just say, hey.
Hey.
I know we're doing all this extra stuff, but right at the heart of this for the MSR is just real conversations, real getting at the topics and getting at real solutions that the community can grasp and can move forward on and chime in on. And so, we're talking Black business, the impact of it, and how we can support businesses in the state. And so I want to start with you, Justin. I would love for you to introduce yourself in, one of the several things that you do in life, and then the most pressing issue that you are seeing for Black-owned businesses right now.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I appreciate the invitation for tonight as well. So, as you mentioned, I'm the vice chair of the board for the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce, own Doug Donuts and Rita's. I'm an accountant by education, and did my MBA at Northwestern in Chicago. Spent most of my career in financial services before hopping into entrepreneurship. And so, for me, that's kind of the foundation of being able to be in business and what I kind of bring to the table. I don't have a skill set, right? I don't cook. I don't, have an art or anything like that. I'm just a finance guy. Which actually leads me to, I think, kind of your first question of what I think some of the most pressing needs right now for Black businesses are, is access to capital, right? Especially in this pandemic, right? So for me, we're down at Rita's, we were down 62% year over year. At Doug Donuts, we're down 48% year over year. And the only way that you can survive that is to be properly capitalized, right? And so for me, having the skill set that I have, I was able to financially engineer and capitalize my business appropriately. But that access to capital is thin for Black folks, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we don't have, loan money from mama and daddy and for grandpa or aunts, uncle,
Right.
whatever it may be. There's not a lot of let's all pool our money together and make something bigger than ourselves. And it's just not a lot of money to go around to begin with. So I think that's the biggest deal, is the access to capital. And, my chief concern now is even with some of the loans that are out there from the SBA or whatever, these disaster loans and whatnot.
PPPs and all that. Yes.
Yeah. And PPP, I think, is okay if you're getting the forgiveness, if you hit it. But for those that get like the disaster loans or got new lines of credit or whatever it is, well, when your business goes back to normal, you just going back to normal, and then you still got to service that debt on the back end, right? And so, that's one of the things we've been focused on at the Black Chamber, is saying, how can we do more grants and eliminate some of the debt that's out there to recapitalize some of the businesses? And so, that's one of the things for me that's been really, really big, is how do we get more capital into the businesses and all these big corporations that are out here talking about, I'm putting $100 million here and I'm putting $1 billion to racial equity. Where did it go? Right. So I don't know about any of you, but I haven't seen it manifest itself in our community. I haven't seen it in the hood. I haven't seen it in my parents' business. I haven't seen it in my friends' businesses. So tell me how it is that money is trickling down to eliminate racial inequities. And so I think we have to really get our arms around the capitalists out there and figure out how we can make it work for us.
Okay, so we need to figure out how to get this capital to even capitalize on our power.
Correct.
That's a real good start. Felicia, you're over at West Broadway, and you went viral earlier this year for your fundraising efforts for Northside businesses. And folks thought, just because you got these cool million or 2 or 3 or 5 in your coffers, that everything was magically going to be fixed. So can you talk about the work that you're doing and then the challenges that you're seeing even when monies do flow in?
Yes, absolutely. Let me see, where do I start? Well, Felicia Perry, Executive Director of West Broadway Business and Area Coalition. And the work of WBC is, when you really break it down, our mission is to do work that creates a vibrant and thriving West Broadway corridor and North Side community economic ecosystem. And part of that goal is that the things that we do and what's created and developed here actually benefits the residents. It serves our business needs, our retail needs, our livability needs as residents, as well as those who visit the area. So that's encompasses a lot of the work that WBC does. Of course, this past summer, a lot of folks know, as you said, we went viral. And one of the results of that was being able to raise a substantial amount of money, historic, in fact, with regards to who it was intended for. Thus far, it's really one of the only fund sources that are meant intentionally just for North Minneapolis, very specific 3 zip codes, those businesses. And so what's happened is usually North Minneapolis businesses are used to kind of being left out of some of the funding opportunities. A lot of the businesses that have benefited from this fund did not get funding from the city, the county, or even those federal funds. So like they didn't qualify for the PPP, or they didn't get it in time. They didn't have, the thing about the PPP loan, as you know, Justin, is it's really based on people's relationship with their accountant and their financial institution. And so the way that it was working is that these banks, they were being proactive in hitting up their clients, the ones they know, their business clients. And a lot of our entrepreneurs didn't have that same relationship where they were bankable in that way, that they were proactively being sought out and supported and even applying for some of these things. So those are some of the context some of the things we have to put in context. With respect to the fund, putting that in context, a lot of that money was meant for businesses that were impacted both by COVID-19 and the uprising this past summer. And so what that created was this huge responsibility that my organization didn't have the capacity at the time to really manage. And so I've been doing quite a bit of work in the background fundraising for the organization. At the time, I was the only employee, but as of now, it is 3 full-time employees at West Broadway, and a contract employee or 2 helping do this work. So that's been really amazing. And it's been really amazing to be able to bring on a team of folks that are already have roots in the community. So they're personally invested and brilliant. So just kind of a quick roundabout of kind of where that is. And also consider North Minneapolis is a community that's largely been divested from. So we don't get the type of donations that we've gotten this year. And through a lot of the work that myself and other organizations, Black-led organizations like the Black Women's Wealth Alliance, Northside Economic Opportunity Network, the African American Leadership Forum, the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce, some of the work that we've been doing as the Black Business Support Collective, Social Impact Strategies Group, which is a Black-owned business. A lot of the work that we've been, I feel like I need to shout out these people because these are like Black women who are owning and running these businesses and organizations as well, Black men. And a lot of our work kind of gets missed a little bit. So some of the work that I'm doing through WBC and these other collaborations are that we have formed the Black Business Support Collective. And one of the things we've been able to do is create basically this small warehouse of PPE that we literally just kind of went live. MinnesotaBlackOwned.com. Check it out. I'll get that link. But at any rate, it's a place where Black businesses can go and they can get access to personal protection equipment, supplies for their businesses at free to low cost, something that's affordable for you. So make sure you hit us up. We've got some supplies actually stored in some space right on the West Broadway corridor in Neon's space where we can get that to folks. So that's just one of the kind of initiatives. In addition to that, just the fund alone, thus far, we've been able to get over $500,000 out to 35 different Northside businesses that were impacted by the uprising. And again, a large portion of those folks weren't able to get access to any other funding, at least funding that I was not attached to. So I've been really intentional about the funds that I've been being a part of, the grant panels or anything like that, is that I've been intentional about making sure those funds come to my particular constituency, because it usually doesn't.
It sounds like a lot more than the typical $500 grant that
yeah. So our grant, we got to get up to $20,000 out of the Northside Small Business Fund. Yeah. And they jumped through way less hoops than they did for $5,000 from, say, other grants. Yeah. I mean, I can name them because facts are facts.
Yes. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Felicia. That's a lot of work right there, especially from the ground up, from not being what you were initially created for. And then we have Tommy on the other side, Tommy Beavis, co-owner for Pimento Jamaican Kitchen, and you've been out here killing it. And so you're one of the rarities. Let's be just real honest when we're talking about, especially a restaurant-based business, and being hit the hardest, Black-owned, and you've been managing to thrive through a pandemic and also create opportunities and provide resources to the community. Can you tell us about what you've been doing? over the past 7-8 months.
Thanks so much for having us, and thanks much for having this forum. I think the only secret sauce I can say that Pimento has is its village, its community. We literally started in my backyard here, cooking with the community, brought the food out on the streets right here on Penn, and gave away food for free in exchange for people completing surveys to tell us what they thought of it and signing on to our social media movement. And so it's a community that has been pulling us and pushing us. And then during the pandemic, naturally, everybody was concerned and scared. And one of the biggest things that we recognize is, our people need food, right? And so by any means necessary, we were trying to figure out, we were ensuring that we stayed open for the community. Right. But at the same time, we're trying to figure out how do we get food out to those in need, so those in encampments and all of that. So we've been doing a lot of that on the ground, and so when the uprisings happened, and it was just so powerful to see that it was a community who was like, listen, this is what we need right now. We need to get food. We need to get access to supplies, cleaning supplies, PPE, and volunteers like Samantha Pre-Gonzalez, who I see right here on the call. The community is what made all of that possible. And then even now, as we look forward to the next round of the pandemic, it is that community again who's showing up to help keep us pushing forward, because we're making sure that we're here to not only provide food, but provide opportunity for all of us. And one of the things that you were asking about earlier was what's missing in our community. And I think we're hitting on so many of the great ones. So the capital portion of it, yes. And then you talk about the network and the organization. The networking is a very important part, because one of the things that we're trying to do is over at Pimento Relief Services, which came out of the uprising from the community, it is how do we provide economic liberation, political liberation, and social liberation, right? And when you talk about this economic liberation, it is how do we build an ecosystem? So you talk about Justin being an accountant, how do you bring his services to other Black businesses? You meet another marketer over there, and you just keep blowing up each other as we grow. And that's how we sort of create this solid ecosystem and that rises all boats. And at Pimento Relief Services, that's some of the things that we're doing. But I think the most important thing that we have to focus on, if nothing else, is ensuring that we have all options on the table. We're not accepting any excuses, and that we're one set of united buffaloes stampeding in the same direction. We can't have everybody going off, or if you think back to the Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, which approach should we take? No, man, everything right now. You go back to Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois, where it's like, well, do we go this way? No, it's every option on the table. And I'm really proud of our community for stepping up and bringing all resources, because we have the willpower, the resources, and the know-how. We're going to get it done this time.
Thank you. And so you brought up another great point when we're talking about how do we capitalize on our Black buying power. So we have capital. How do we capitalize? And then how do we even disseminate once we do get those resources? So those are, key things. I know folks are chiming in on the comments. Please keep doing so. We are going to get to you. This next area I want to focus on is generational wealth building. That's what we hear a lot when we think about Black business ownership. We hear that real estate and owning a business are your key to your legacy, right? And then we got hit by this pandemic that's just like, okay, then we found out most Black-owned businesses are sole proprietorships. We learned most aren't going to reopen if they had to shutter their doors, and most didn't have the rainy day fund, as we call it, for the businesses to survive 2-3 months being hit with any sort of capital issues. So what do you see, what needs to change? Was it on our end that we just weren't ready? Is it a knowledge piece? Was it lack of resources? What can we do so that, we're going into another round, that we can prepare to pivot when things go left in our businesses, particularly service-based at this point? Who wants to chime in?
That was a lot, sis. I'm gonna take like one or two of them. Tommy, Justin, y'all back up, right? Yeah. Okay. So yes, it was a combination of all of those things, is what I'm seeing, Stefanetta. And those aren't challenges that only Black businesses are facing, but you will find that we are facing them as such a disparate amount. It's ridiculous. Black-owned businesses, immigrant-owned businesses, these businesses that are like over on Lake Street, but they're in the cultural malls, and their skin tends to be a lot darker than, you know, what you see represented in some of that stuff. So they are experiencing this in so many different levels, and carrying the burden of really seriously systematic, intentional economic divestment and oppression that has been going on for, you know, centuries, right? So add that to us now also having a pandemic on top of the other pandemic we've been dealing with, and on top of the impacts of the uprising, which when you go and look at the damage reports, overwhelmingly, specifically, I know in North Minneapolis and some of those areas over on like Minnehaha, it is BIPOC owned businesses that were damaged and destroyed, right? Now, I haven't been able to answer the why. Everybody has their theories, but those where I say facts are just facts are facts. So we're dealing with all of those other things, and we're some of the largest impacted. Now, when you go and you start following the money, which I always encourage everyone to do, you will find that we're also not getting those resources either. Overwhelmingly, they're going to communities that had access to them in the first place. That's what happened with the PPP, and that's what happened with when the city decided to turn it into a lottery, and so did the county with their funds, you know. So again, and even speaking to entrepreneurs, I personally did a lot of work speaking to folks and advocating at the city and county level around including entrepreneurs in that. What I didn't tell them was to make it a lottery. That was one of the things I explicitly said would leave our people out of it. And that's exactly what happened. So like, to be quite honest with you, that's one of the reasons why I very much protect this fund and make sure that it's getting to Northside businesses, because we have to do that. We have to put intention around saying Black people, which is what we're doing at Minneapolis Forward Community Now Coalition. Again, this is like a coalition of people across the city pushing for all of these resources to come to these communities. And even within that coalition, we decided early on that first we're going to say Black, and we're going to say Black first. We're also going to say Indigenous. We're going to center these folks. And that's that is who we're focusing on as the beneficiaries of our work. And even the way we strategized and did that, where it's not a city thing, we're in partnership with them. And part of that partnership is telling your partner that we're going to say Black.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to sit for Black folks. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
so that's one of the ways.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Felicia. And Justin, piggybacking off of this, you know, the capital conversation is huge. We even have Samantha Pree who chimed in on, who's tuning in in our Facebook Live, and she's asking about patient capital, you know, the capital that allows us to pay it back later and not have these balloon payments and not have immediate paybacks. And can you explain that? Can you also share what kind of resources that we do have access to? And is that something that we can get to? Yeah,
you know, and Felicia mentioned it earlier, and you know, one of the things that people have talked about is that the system is broken. Mm-hmm. And I don't think the system is broken. The system is working as it's designed to do, right? And that's one of the things I think we have to kind of wrap our minds around and say, the system is here, but how do we play outside of that box? Because the system isn't designed for us to succeed in it, right? 400 plus years, and that success measures just aren't there. So, you know, I think a few things. One, I would like to see us, Black people, talk about capital and talk about finances more openly, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. Not everybody's an accountant, not everybody's a finance person, a banker, whatever it is. And so we need to lean on each other, right? My wife and I had a conversation with another couple via Zoom, just catching up before the holidays. And we started to talk about where are we investing our money, where's our real estate portfolio, et cetera, right? And that open dialogue that I think we need to expand upon more inside of our community to get us more comfortable. Now, you know, outside of that, I do think that there are opportunities to utilize patient capital, right? There are well-to-do individuals in the Black community. There are people with capital that say, I want to do something, but I think that the question is the what, and how do we make sure that those people get connected, right? So if you are running a business, if you do have a great idea, if you want to invest in real estate, you need the capital to do so. And I think there needs to be some different mechanism that exists for us to partner together to bring more funds together on a regular basis. And that's what's missing. I think the dialogue has to happen first, right? Where we can all get comfortable with each other, right? I lived in Charlotte for almost 10 years. And my neighbor, black guy that worked at Lowe's at the headquarters, he said, Justin, this is a chocolate city. Why is there not a big Black accounting firm? And I said, one reason alone, trust, right? I got to be the boss. You can't be the boss, right? Well, if I put my money in, you put your money in, but you kill it and I don't, we got to forget all of that, right? And we have to take the dollar that I have, right? It's only going to go so far, right? You want to go fast, you go alone. You want to go far, you go together, right? And so I think we have to get that and forget about some of the systemic infrastructure that exists today and set our own private funds together, right? Our own banks together, our own investment vehicles that gives us the flexibility that we need for our community, right? And so when we think about real estate, to your point, is one of the best ways to to gain wealth and then to pass generational wealth, right? I read about the senator running from Georgia, right? Watched the debate. Maybe some of you guys did too. I finally read up on her. Well, she financed her college education by mortgaging the land that her grandparents had left her, right? She's talking about, I clocked in while I was 15 years old. You clocked into your family's business while you were 15 years old. Let's have real talk about it, right? And so, but thinking about that, she financed her education by land that was left to her, that was generational wealth, right? And so we think about who owns the land in our own communities, right? And so that home ownership has dropped dramatically, which means that subsequent home ownership, your primary residence, investment properties, has also dropped as well. So I think, we need to think through that, because that is also that patient capital, because if it's not coming directly out of my pocket, if I can leverage equity from a piece of land, if I can leverage equity from a home or investment property, whatever it may be, that doesn't need to be paid back in chunks right away, then I have some breathing room there. So, I think that's, if I could see one thing in the future, it would be more conversations, open conversations around capital and about wealth management. And then looking at the system that we would like to build differently than the system that exists today.
Do you think, this is for Felicia or Justin on this one, do you think that we're ready? I hear that a lot, we were talking about with the banks for PPE where people lost out on loans, right? I also understand that there were a lot of small businesses that have been operating as sole proprietorships that weren't able to access funds because they didn't have LLCs or S2, whatever I don't know all the names. That's not my wheelhouse. But didn't have those proper business designations to even reach those funds. So I'm wondering, in general, do you think that we have the educational resources available or access to them as well?
Yes, I like how you kind of reframe that question in the end versus saying, are we ready?
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Definitely. So some of the gaps that I see, we definitely have gaps in capital, and there's a lot of reasons why. One of the reasons why is the gap in institutional knowledge. So like, I will say that myself this year, I raised money and I've invested over $20,000 in my own professional development so that I could confidently sit in front of y'all right now talking about managing a nonprofit as an executive director and managing millions of dollars that have been raised that this nonprofit didn't have a year ago, right? And within that, also raising money to support my board's development so that we all could be like just really honestly this dope team. I'm trying to watch my words on my spokesman recorder. But like really dope team, because my board also is comprised primarily of Black business owners. And so that's one of the things when you go to WBC's website, soon I'm going to have their photos up there so you all can actually see who is behind this work, doing this work for the community at large. You know, we have white folks on our board and all of that too. But again, one of the things our board did a while ago was say that our makeup should reflect the community that it's in. And so having a certain amount of business owners, a certain amount based off of the demographics of the neighborhood is where we are. And we have to work hard to even keep that way. So even as we think about what can people do, I think supporting organizations, not just, money, yes, but there are things. There are attorneys out here, Black attorneys out here. There are Black accountants out here that can join boards like this and support this work, that have that institutional knowledge that perhaps it might be one of my gaps. It might be one of the gaps there might be gaps at the Black Chamber that they may perhaps have. So when we're out here saying we're looking for board members or we're looking for even employees, like that is our way of like calling like, you all do that. Because I know that there are a lot of us who are ready, but don't have that institutional knowledge to even know they could like put together, say, a career like I've had and be able to run a multi-million-dollar nonprofit.
Okay.
And I think to answer your question, we're ready. But I have skill set gaps that you could drive a semi truck through, right? I'm an accountant by trade, and I have a CPA firm that manages my books, right? I'm a banker by education or by trade as well. And I have a wealth manager that manages my money, right? I'm not good at marketing, so I hired a marketing guy. I'm not detail oriented, so I got an operations guy, right? And so the reality is you cannot, whether personally or professionally, manage all this stuff on your own, right? Okay. And so you have to come out here and get the professional help that you need. And to your point, I serve on the board of directors for the National Association of Black Accountants. There's plenty of Black accountants out here that can do very good work for us, right? There's plenty of Black attorneys in this state that can do good work for us. And you need that outside look at your business so that somebody say, you know what, nah, this ain't hitting on it, right? You need to do X, Y, and Z. I had a real tough conversation with my financial advisor yesterday. And he was like, look, either you trying to get somewhere or you not. Right. And so your risk adverse, your strategy is great, but we're on to the next thing. And if you want to achieve your goals, we need to do X, Y, and Z. All right, fine. You have to have that independent kind of third party look at your life and at your business so that you can say, here's my goals, but the pathway that I'm taking right now, am I going to achieve my goals? Right. And let the experts who are experts go do that. Right. If I want to come up with with new recipes, new flavors, that ain't my skill set. I gotta pick up the phone. I gotta call Tommy, right? Because that is his skill set, right? All I'm gonna do is run it into the ground, right? And so, then people don't want to eat at my spot. You know what I mean? Because I tried to do something that's outside of my wheelhouse. So I think we're ready for it. I think the community has to do a little bit better job. The Black Chamber has to do a better job of saying, here's where you can go for these resources. And and that's one of the things we're working on is providing funding for technical grant assistance, right? So when we look at 2021, accountants, lawyers, and marketing professionals, we're trying to get this list together so that we can say, you know what, you're a member of the chamber, we're going to pay for 5 hours of consulting work for each one of these 3 kind of professional services here. It's on us. We know it's the right thing. Let's get you set up the right way. Get you set up right so you can take advantage of opportunities. But more importantly, let's make sure you're protected legally as well, right? Because the other side of the coin, when we had COVID, when we had the uprising, people weren't properly insured either, right? So a legal entity and clean books doesn't help you if you're completely uninsured and someone breaks in, burns your building down, whatever it may be. There's all these things that kind of encompass a success metric that we need to kind of take advantage of. So that's kind of some of my thinking on that.
Okay.
If I could jump in
Yes,
here,
Tommy,
not
please.
a favorite standpoint, but my undergrad was also economics. Yeah, but the thing about what you, Justin, was just talking about is we had a summit about 2 weeks ago, and Carl, the president of the chamber, was there, and we recognized, whoa, we're working on literally the same concept. Whereby, when we talk about the economic liberation efforts that we're doing, is we recognize that you can take, let's say, a small landscaper who's just driving around with a rake and a lawnmower. How do you get them to the next level? And what we're recognizing is just by providing them that ecosystem, which is the same thing that you guys are doing at the Black Chamber, whereas you get the Black lawyer, the Black accountant, the Black marketer, the Black realtor, the Black insurance agent, and you provide you provide that ecosystem around them, because usually through networking, that's what our white counterparts would normally have. Right, everybody's already passing business card and making connections, and so we have to continue doing that for ourselves. And so, our Pimento Relief Services, we're earmarking over the next year. We're going to be targeting 5 businesses who are going to help get to that level, and we're putting $10,000 in support in get them building that ecosystem, and also $10,000 in their startup capital to help grow them, because we recognize that even if you gave the capital, we are ready indeed. And yet it is so much more complex than I have a great business idea, I have a great marketing plan, and I can count the money. You know what I'm saying? One thing I will say, even throughout my entire academic career, all the way through business school, nobody has ever spoken to me about the role of government in your business.
Yeah.
Can you expound upon that?
Yo. OGs are the OGs. Like, they are in your business through and through and through. So to start a business, the way I've described it in the past is very simple. One, over this weekend, you can create a website on GoDaddy for $10. 2, you can create your business cards, if you need a business card these days, for $10 on Vistaprint, right? Mm-hmm. Then you go to the Secretary of State's website to register your company, $700 if you're using LegalZoom. Mm-hmm. And then literally by the end of this weekend, you have a legitimate business. Oh, don't forget to create your Facebook page and your Twitter page free. You know what I'm saying? You have a legitimate business this weekend.
And a logo. Don't forget your logo.
Exactly. Right. And you can get logo design for
Fiverr real quick.
Or $99. So we literally can set up a business this weekend. Fact. Now the government they play an even larger role than we would think.
Oh, and the EIN.
Let's start on the positive. They provide funding. Let's be honest. Let's be clear. So, but we don't even know that, right? So, Hennepin County just launched the Elevate Business HC grant, where Hennepin County, and I'm on the committee that was putting that together, and it was targeting our people. And there's a lot more of those programs that are out there that we're not even aware of. So one of the things that we're also doing with the Pimento Relief Service effort is we're taking those same landscapers or those Latunji's Palace or those Rocky Robinsons and figure out how do we help get them to the MEDA level or the MCCD level or those folks who are getting government funding,
right,
to pass it back on to us. And yet they're like, oh, well, you need to figure out how to complete these 3 or 4 forms. We'll help you figure that out. Because we shall not allow any bureaucracy or red tape to get what is there. And that's why it is important that we're united in our direction as stampeding buffaloes and recognize that the resources are out there, and through our networking and through our collaborative efforts, what they're doing at the chamber is exactly what we need to be doing. And kudos to them. And through our united efforts, we're gonna ensure that our people are for real ready.
Yeah.
So as
to piggyback off that, when he says the government is all in your business,
yes.
So I'm building my Duck Donuts out here in Woodbury 2 years ago, and then they hit me with this pollution control machine, right, for $40,000 that I had to put on top. Y'all didn't want to tell me about this 6 months ago when I was deciding to put my business in Woodbury. And so, you think about it, and you're like, a pollution control. I make donuts. Like, what are you talking about? I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, act like I'm putting arsenic in the air or something, right? And so, stuff like that pops up all the time. Mm-hmm. And you know that you have to do your legal filings. You know that you need, licensing and all that. But then there's the ancillary stuff that pops up, and you're like, all right, now how do you navigate all of this? I just want to make donuts, right? But I got to jump through all these hoops just before I can open my door to sell you a warm custom-made donut.
So
the food industry is the second most regulated, only after hospitals. Let's be honest on that one, right? And I would be negligent if I only gave the positive of the government. Thank you for balancing it out and saying, yes, they're on our necks. But a lot of the thing with government, though, is it's practically surprise how we have to learn these things. And oftentimes these larger companies, they have the accounting firms and the legal teams who are already aware of it, anticipating it, and also codifying and writing into law the way it shall be. And we just have to stumble upon it. They slap us on the wrist, charge us a fine, and we figure out how to move from there. But one of the things that's happening in the city of Minneapolis too, though, is they're figuring out how to sort of like consolidate those resources in their ready for business concept, where you can literally just go and they give you the 2-pager, if you will, with all the 1, 3, 4, 7 steps that you need to click on to create your business. So negative, and yet if the resource out there, let us try to get it out to our people as best as possible.
That's a big thing, though, is, for you as a Black business owner, where do you go to find that? I know that there's a lot of talk, and if you have the connection, if you have the golf buddy or whoever that partner is that's already in there, but most people who are starting did that whole weekend situation, and now they're looking for, what do I do next so that I don't lose my business? And they don't even understand, sometimes you just got to pay. There's a fee, a tax just on owning your business, right? Just to have it existing, and then they lose their business after they've registered it. So it's, where do we go?
You come to some of these folks, you come to the folks that are on this call, number one, the Minnesota Black Chamber, even WBC, as Justin even said, like, we all have more work to do. There are all ways that we can be better at our work. But one thing we do, and we have been doing well this year, is staying connected to each other. So even though I haven't interfaced with Justin directly in any of my work, I've been working with the Minnesota Black Chamber collaboratively, and specifically around how do we get this information out? How do we share information institutionally that we know helps, this cross sector of folks that we are all serving. So I think these are great places. There's places that are, very place-based. Like, my organization, our work is area-based in North Minneapolis, right? But I also collaborate with, say, Neon and Black Women's Wealth Alliance and Emerge, or that serve people across the Twin Cities as well in their work. And these are, Black Women's Wealth Alliance and Neon, Black-led orgs and/or businesses too, who are also like technical assistance providers. And when we use that term, that's really like those, that little bit of expertise around business development and stuff that our organizations can offer, in addition to helping you connect to resources. A lot of our organizations don't have like the attorneys and the lawyers like on hand that we can just lend out to people, which is why Justin's talking about developing something so we can get our businesses access to that. So orgs like ours, that is our work to identify these problems and create programming and resources to help create pathways for folks to have these things versus some of the barriers we tend to come up against. So this is a good start. NBC, African American Leadership Forum is a great place, especially when we're thinking about like organizationally, they could be a good resources to direct you to, especially when we're thinking about Black-led organizations. So be creative in the way we seek out the help that we need. There's very intentional effort, whether people see it or not, amongst us, Black leadership, in connecting to each other and each other's work, so that we're not stepping on each other, and our collective efforts and energy can bring in all the stuff we know our people need. So just trust that that is happening, and start plugging in.
So for everyone tuning in, again, this is MSR Forefront. We're talking Black business ownership, impact, capital, access, all these amazing things. You just heard Felicia share some important places that we can go. I know a lot of times when we do start, we think that there is nothing out there, and we just want to be clear that there are tons of resources. We have 3 community leaders and organizations and a business owner right now who are creating and making a difference in what ownership looks like. Resources, access. Please check the comments for their links. And then also I want to talk, talking in terms of how we support existing Black businesses, right? There's always this conversation about how we capitalize on our Black buying power. We know the Nielsen data is like 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 trillion dollars that we spend annually. We over index and outspend on just about everything as a Black community. What can we do when we talk Black business? There seems to be, when you say go on and support a Black business, right? There seems to be some sort of, well, I don't know, this is why I don't shop Black, or this is why I do this, or how do we shift a mindset around where it's not just thinking that we're shopping Black for an attitude per se, but because we are supporting our development of our communities? I mean, we record spending right now, but we still talk. Come on, social media is live. So
If I were to jump into while Felicia adjusted formally, I'm gonna take a stab and say I think there's several things that we need to do. We need to know that the same way in which a lot of people have closed doors in our faces, we need to work triply hard to open doors for each other. And support each other. Also, I think another big and important part of what we're doing too is ensuring that is not only the networking aspect, but it's also how do we even figure out how to when I think of like a Rocky Robinson, that's a great product that's targeting young Black queens, right? So how do we even help?
Shout out to Audra.
Big up Audra. Blah, blah, blah. But it's like take that, right, and get it like say on a Target shelf in our own community. And so even if a Target were to say open on West Broadway, it's not about just Target. It's Target selling the Rocky Robinsons of the world to where we're going into that Target, supporting that Rocky Robinson. And in turn, now Rocky Robinson is building their own factory right here in North Minneapolis, ensuring that we're producing it there and we're selling it through whatever vehicles we have. And it's us changing our mindset about it. And it's us forcing others to change that mindset. One thing I've been telling people, you better open the door, because when we come, we're kicking down the door and it might get burnt down. It's a new day. We're not taking no right answer now. We're going to solve this.
And it's not always convenient and easy to buy Black.
Right.
I mean, I live in Woodbury, right? And so I have to pack a lunch to go get dinner, right, at a Black spot. You know what I mean? And so, but I do it because it's necessary, right? Black businesses tend to employ Black people at a higher rate, right? You don't have a conversation around the wages for Black employees in my business, right? Because we take care of our community when it comes to employment, to compensation, for opportunities, right? And all of that. And so there's the trickle down effect that happens when we have Black businesses, right? And so, that's really, I think for me, the big deal is, I don't have 13 locations around town, right? There's some Black businesses around here, that McDonald's and whatnot, that has 13, 15 locations, right? That's fine.
Shout out to the Baylors.
That's right.
That's generations.
That's right. But it takes time to get there.
Yeah.
That's right. It takes time to get there, but they never would have gotten there if the community would not have supported them back in the 80s and 90s, right? And so, there maybe needs to be a pimento on every corner, right? In every major suburb. So how do we make that happen, right? I have to whip out my debit card. I got to get in my car and I got to drive 30 minutes, but I got to do it so that one day I can have a 5-minute drive because you put a location in Woodbury, right? But if I don't spend my money with you, then you can't do that. And so everything is inconvenient until it becomes convenient, but we got to use the money, right? Let's use it in the right spaces. I'm not saying don't go to Nordstrom's. I'm not saying don't go to Ruth Chris, right? Or don't go to Dunkin' Donuts. Go where you want to go, but make sure that you spend a healthy percentage of your money with Black businesses as much as you can.
So we want to be more intentional.
Yes.
That's right.
Yes, intentional. And dare I say, something that you kind of sparked in me while you're talking, Justin, is we can help our businesses solve some of these problems by being innovative and how we find ways to access them too. You know what I mean? So I think about and I'm not saying, call all your business owner friends and be giving them all that unsolicited advice, but right now it's so important to be supporting specifically our food businesses. That's literally in any community, right? But like our food businesses, our Black food businesses are suffering quite a bit as well. Their supply chain is just all crazy right now because everything's so expensive. So even though there's a high demand for food, right, to get delivered and ordered, a lot of them aren't set up that way because, they had made 5-year plans to be a dine-in spot, right? Not like a 5-year plan to figure out curbside delivery and then hook up with some company like a DoorDash to make it happen, or figure out how to pivot their staff around to not be wait staff to now be delivery staff with a whole different type of insurance situations, right? So how can we, be innovative? Who are our digital marketers who know how to help promote those businesses? Who are our folks who know how to help these businesses pivot at a time like this and map out that new plan for 2021? Some of that stuff helps them be more bankable because they have to come up with this for some of their financial institutions or grants or whatever in order to prove that they've kind of figured out some kind of way to survive. We can help support in those ways as well. And not to be funny, but I do stuff pay, instead of paying, I'm switching all the money I've been spending on DoorDash to get stuff delivered to me working at home to trying to supporting Black owned catering companies and meal prep services, small entrepreneurs, working with them, might give them a little business advice on the side, you know what I'm saying? And tell them about I see that you're located in this community. I know about this business association that has resources. Make sure you hit up this person there. My funds are for, this particular place, but I know that because I'm talking with these other organizations that they have something for you. So go to them. So there's that creative intention behind it too. I'm leveraging my stuff for all of us, for real. So I think those of us that are out there who can think of those ways to do that, be sure that you're sharing that wealth of knowledge and experience with these Black business owners, because we kind of need everybody, all hands on deck, so we can get through this.
Yeah, agreed.
Nice. Thank you. So yeah, this is it right here, y'all. I know we don't have much time, and we could really do this for 2 more hours. Thinking in terms of the shifting in mindset and how we do become more intentional, how do you think businesses, what roles in terms of marketing, are we missing things in marketing? Are there other things? I know I would say for the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder, the Black Business Spotlight has been a big thing. It kicked back off when I was here a year and a half ago for editor-in-chief, and it became the number one thing on the site. No matter what else we talked about Black, news, politics, education, health. As soon as we talked about a Black-owned business, that was it. Everyone took off in oh my God, there's another one of us. Thank
you for giving yourselves credit, because everybody been copying y'all with these business spotlights, right? Yeah, I'm down for calling it a business spotlight. And I remember just being so why don't we just hit up the Spokesman Recorder to do the business spotlight? So yes, you all have been doing that for a while, and it is a model a lot of places and organizations, even organizations like mine, have been doing to help promote our businesses. And that is huge, that visibility thing, and opening them up to a different market. I'm in conversations with various places that have these media sources and platforms that, I feel like I got it on lock. Northside, when I'm on Northside, I know some Northside knows, right? But right. There is money outside of our community. I want to come here so we can keep circulating it here, if that makes sense. So I want all the money. So when I create these Shop Northside boxes where anyone with a post office that we can mail, we can mail stuff to, can have this box full of the Northside business and business economy experience inside that box, where they can then learn how to shop, because we've helped them set up e-commerce sites. Where they can, and even with our Black Friday on Broadway vendors, we couldn't have an in-person pop-up. So we switched it to, online. And we supported the business owners by creating these shipping toolkits for them, giving them advice on how to process orders. Everybody didn't have an online marketplace, but how do you take in some orders from your Instagram and set up a system? And then we give you all these different shipping supplies you need for the different things that you're sending. So organizations like mine kind of come up with programming like that. We mix it in with a little bit of like funding and sponsorship from like Target, who helped us, you know, create that site. And just like really, we have to do that for each other. Like we have to think of ways that we can help them solve those problems too. Because 9 times out of 10, this small business owner is trying to figure out their problems, their family problems, and some of their friends. And it's so helpful to have that kind of support behind them where they don't have to be everything for everybody, even themselves.
And Tommy, same for you. Like you've managed to translate your local coverage into national coverage as well. You know, so we're seeing your story told on a national level in the work that you're doing. How has marketing helped your business? And was it something that you considered when you first started?
I'm a natural marketer for and I enjoy marketing. It's just like something I fully enjoy, to where I literally did not choose to do marketing as an undergrad because I thought it was too easy. But that is separate from that. I think all of what you're asking about though is about the community spotlight, if you will, on what we're doing here. And again, it is the community that has been the most instrumental in getting that national media. And what we're doing is just try to represent our community as best as we possibly can. And to be honest, with the marketing side, what my advice with people to right now as it relates to marketing in general is be your authentic self. Right now, authenticity, it's in. Just be you. And quite honestly, we are in demand. So be you.
Awesome. And so, you know, before we close out, I guess my question to you all, I know there's so much more I want to touch on, but we're talking Black business ownership, impact of our Black buying power, and resources. So we kind of went across the gamut here. When we log off today, what are some things that we can do as viewers and readers to say, this is the next step for me, either as a business owner or as a supporter in the community? Are there any like calls to action that you want us to pick up? Justin?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'll reiterate getting really comfortable with having an open conversation around finances, right? If you want to start a business, it's going to take a deep dive into your finances to make that happen. If you want to stay in business, the same type deal, right? And so, you know,
Who's this conversation with?
Well, I have my own little board, my own little personal board of directors, right?
Okay.
And so, you know, if you have a financial planner, if you have an accountant, if you have a guy at the bank that you work with, if you know somebody in business, right, you have to get comfortable with them, right? I have a friend of mine that works in Charlotte, works at an accounting firm. She and I have talked for years about our salary. When we go in and talk about our negotiations, our bonuses, whatever it is, it's dollar for dollar. She knows what it is. I know what it is. And we had those conversations to help us through this. I'm not saying put a sign on your back saying I make $145,300, right? And just let the world know. But you got to have somebody that you can lean on for some of these conversations, right? You know, do I want to move things around here? How do I get ready for a bank application? How do I clean up my financials? Or are they a little too clean, right? You know, because in some respects, for grant purposes and things like that, yeah, a little mud ain't the worst thing in the world, right? And so I think you need to have those sorts of resources at your disposal and getting comfortable with it. And that I think is the big thing for me. You know, our counterparts in other communities don't have a problem talking about money, right? They don't have a problem with leveraging each other for that. When I bought Rita's back in 2017, the guy was going under, right? And he owed more than I was giving him for the business. And he said, well, I'll just go to my community and make up the difference. Oh, okay. Right. You know, like that was his deal. Was he was in the hole and he was going to go to his community and fill that hole for him. And they're okay with that. He was okay having the question and they're okay providing the funds in order to close that gap. Right. And so that's what I want to see more of, us having those kind of conversations and executing that in the Black community.
All right. So money talk. Let's. Yes. Felicia?
I really agree with Justin around having those really clear conversations about your money. I kind of put in our private chat, the people we're talking to, we are not talking about hitting up that credit repair person in the Facebook group. Like, that is not what we're talking about. There are actual financial counselors with certifications around how they do that with some institutional knowledge as well. And these folks are usually trained so that they can get you prepared for something, you know what I'm saying? Not just play with numbers because they can't, right? So be really intentional around that, and hit up reputable institutions to find out who. That's literally what I do as a leader of an organization. Is I hit up people like, well, what accounting firm, what Black or what BIPOC accounting firm, or what, and find out through word of mouth that way. But some of the actionable things that I feel like we all can do, think about creative about what the support of Black businesses are. I know everybody don't have that money, but some of us know people who have money that we can just be that buzz in their ear to get them to find ways to get their money to circulate throughout our community as well. I do a lot of work like that, to get other people's money to circulate. Like, we can do that as well. I would say as business owners, get your stuff together and be prepared in the sense that not just that you have that cushion of money, but you have that cushion of a support system that's going to do like the gentleman Justin talked about, that's going to help fill in them gaps because they believe in you. We can't be passive thinking, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm just going to expect everybody to support me and I don't have to try. There's really a certain amount of learning we all have to do, and you have to do that work too and continue to do it. So yeah, that's what I'll offer.
Awesome. And Tommy, any final calls to action on your end with your relief efforts? Or
Yes, absolutely. What I would say is everybody needs to see themselves as an instrument of this liberation movement, right? Nobody would have thought that a jerk chicken restaurant could have been at the center doing what it's doing. Nobody would have thought that Minneapolis would have been the epicenter of our liberation. It is because this is our moment, right? And we're going to turn this into a movement. And we talk about liberation, we're talking about economic liberation. So how do we get more Black people to get up and start their own Black businesses? And also the little side hustles, how do we legitimize them? That's what we're talking about, right?
Yes.
And then how do we build that ecosystem around those businesses to where those businesses are lifted up as well as the ecosystems that are built up? When we talk about the social liberation, we're talking about the healing. We need healing as a people. We also need to talk about how do we talk about our cultural reparations so people aren't surprised by who we are with things like Juneteenth, right? When we talk about how do we get the curriculum in schools to where teachers can now teach Black history and history more accurately. So that's liberation. And then finally, the political liberation is how do we get more people to run for office? How do we get people to show up to vote? How do we create the grassroots grannies in the church basements writing letters? And also, how do we even create a Black political action committee to where we're fundraising to support all candidates? Because politicians pay more attention to money these days than they do our votes. So let us ensure that we are seeing ourselves as an instrument of liberation, no matter where we fall in the spectrum.
Okay. This is it, y'all. Well, thank you so much. I just, real quick, we heard action, we heard conversation, and we heard education. So there's no reason right now, Minnesota is equipped, y'all. Black businesses are equipped. There are resources out here. There are people on the ground doing real work that have long been doing it before a pandemic, before uprisings and civil unrest. There have been people who have been very committed and dedicated to our communities. We have 3 of them right now, Justin, Felicia, and Tommy. And I want to say thank you so much for getting in on this conversation. I look forward to us finding and hosting new conversations that go beyond just this part. Because we could just talk, Felicia, right now just about one part that you've been doing, Justin, one part that you've been doing, and Tommy another part. And so this is just the beginning, y'all. This isn't just a one-off where we just come in and just make kumbayas and feel good. We're really about action, and right here we have action, conversation, and education. So I hope that you can go to their sites, check them out in the comments, and also follow the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. For those who do not know, the Spokesman Recorder is actually launching a Black-owned business directory. tomorrow. I was going to share the link, but I have some questions now because Felicia, you just said yours was Minnesota Black owned, MN Black owned.
It's not a directory.
Okay, because I'm just like, oh no, we
Please
have Black owned
and
MN.
connect with us so we can make sure we can share that
Yeah.
information. Come on.
So I'll share it. The website goes live tomorrow. It's blackownedmn.com or Black Owned Minnesota. So it's two, and there's a place for all of those business spotlights, all those resources, and all those things that people have been asking in terms of here's Black owned businesses, and we want to list resources like Felicia and Justin and Tommy and your organizations on that directory as well, so people know that there's a place. Not only are we celebrating Black owned businesses, but this is where you go if you want to be here. Do you know? I mean, so
this sounds like another important thing that we can pour resources into, making sure that we sustain this directory. Because
it's the beginning. There are more Black businesses than we can count in the state of Minnesota, and we continue to be surprised, continue to be uplifted, and to continue to be have heartwarming moments around the businesses that we see being created. I mean, Justin, I know when y'all did Rita's a couple years ago, I was like, so there's a Black ice cream? How in cold? I remember when you were interviewed for that. So I'm just like, this is what we doing out here. Like, yeah. And that's where we're at right now. And so I know I'm supposed to close this out, y'all. So this is the Minnesota Spokesman Recorder. Thank you for tuning into MSR Forefront, where we are bringing Black issues in Minnesota to the forefront. And thank you and good night.
Good night.
Thank you.